Welcome to the lecture titled Well-Being in Chinese Tradition. In the lecture series, Psychology of Well-Being, we have been um, trying to understand well-being in the cultural context, and the last three lectures were devoted to understanding notions as well as experiences of well-being in the Indian socio-historical context, ranging from ancient Indian traditions of Rigveda and Dharma to contemporary times of neoliberal globalization. Well, today we are going to look at the Chinese traditions, which are primarily religious, spiritual, or spiritual traditions, and how these have been influential in shaping the notions of well being in the Chinese culture. Well, we are going to look at, first of all, the overarching patterns of well being across various cultures or societies, which focuses on or which have been observed to be relational as well as hierarchical in nature. On one hand, in many of the non Western societies, we have the notions of relational self and relational well being. At the same time, we also have been facing in such societies various kinds of hierarchies or social hierarchies like religion, caste, gender, etc. So we are going to uh, begin with that, and then we'll be going into the well-being notions of well-being in Chinese scholarly traditions like Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, and also the sense of beauty as an aspect of Chinese conception of well-being. Finally, we'll be looking at comparison between Chinese and Western traditions of well-being. Well, the relational and hierarchical aspects of well being we have been observing, as I mentioned earlier, that there have been strong indications of egalitarian, progressive, as well as exclusionary or divisive ways in which many of the religious spiritual traditions of the world have been used in shaping well being or the struggles for the same in various human societies. In everyday life, the challenge for people is to find ways to let egalitarian or spiritual aspects of one's culture to prevail over the divisive ones. We are going to make use of Yang and Zhao's contributions towards trying to understand well-being in Chinese scholarly tradition, and they point out that it is relational, transcendental, and material aspects that signify the notions of well being in the Chinese culture or Chinese scholarly tradition. There is an emphasis on harmonious interpersonal relationships. Well being isn't defined specifically but expressed using the word le or happiness that may have several meanings. The first meaning could be optimism, joy, and well being. The other parallel meaning would be melody in music, that is, harmony in sounds. Still another would be recovery or healing from illness. So, la in general means happiness, but it may have several meanings in the material, symbolic, or relational worlds of Chinese people. We'll also explore such experiences associated with le within Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. How do we understand well being in Confucianism? Well being in scholarly traditions, we find that there is an emphasis within Confucianism on satisfaction from fulfilling basic needs in life, that is, material possessions, health, morality, peace of mind, and no anxiety of death. But going beyond sensory pleasure too is another emphasis in Confucianism, which is to engage in aesthetics such as music or forms of art, having social value through contributions towards society. More important than individual pleasure is the contribution towards society and the emphasis that is given on that. Well, Taoism, another scholarly tradition, we find that it does not rely on material world of happiness. It says that it's something that is transitory and may not be important because it may actually be a source of much of the distress for people if taken uncritically, primarily as the basic goals of human life, just in the material terms. So they emphasize not to rely on the material world of happiness. Instead, Taoism stresses man's oneness with nature. That's very important, oneness with nature, and the need to adapt to circumstances as they arise. So, going with the flow of circumstances, going with the flow of life or one's journey in life, it advocates the pursuit of a state of conformity with nature and an abstention from reckless behavior so as to arrive at a point where extreme pleasure is no pleasure. So, again, that is something which is uh, sort of uh, caution regarding the limits of material happiness and what could be more permanent in terms of man's oneness with nature or state of conformity with nature. Taoism also emphasizes on exploring, acknowledging, and accepting oneself as a part of nature or rhythm of life. Besides this, we also find that sense of beauty is another aspect of Chinese conception of well-being. We have already seen that besides Taoism, Confucianism, there is another way to understand Chinese conception of well-being, that is with the help of Buddhism. And Buddhism, we have already seen in the previous lectures in the Indian tradition also that how they emphasize not only on the material aspects of happiness, but also the orientation towards trying to understand oneself as another form of existence and to live in harmony with other forms of existence, or to take one's life as one of the forms of overall existence. And again, that could be a way to, in fact, address human suffering and move towards wisdom. Now, besides Buddhism, the sense of beauty is an aspect of Chinese conception of well being. And it has been pointed out that beauty has a sense of pleasure, but also beauty in terms of the harmony of nature give themselves over to the process, go into peaceful situations after a strong emotion brought by the beauty of nature. Furthermore, helps achieve well-being, as noted by Confucian scholars. So it's important to have harmony with nature or give themselves over to the process, give ourselves over to the process, going into peaceful situations after a strong emotion brought by the beauty of nature. Furthermore, it helps in achieving well being. Taoism also emphasizing moving away from sensual or material pleasures towards metaphysical notions of well being, that is, being a part of forms of existence. Well, finally, we come to a comparison between Chinese and Western traditions of well being, and it must have been clear by now that subjective well being, which emphasized on satisfaction in life based on a variety of internal, external conditions, and it primarily involves, besides satisfaction in life, positive emotions and negative and minimum of negative emotions. Now, subjective well-being may be a part of Chinese notions of well being, but it is more interpersonally oriented and spiritually oriented. So, if we talk about positive emotions or minimum of negative emotions and satisfaction in life, the sources of that could be more interpersonal as well as spiritual in orientation. That's something that we learn from the Chinese notions of well being. Then eudaimonic well-being associated with Taoist thought about well-being because you've already seen that it helps you. Eudaimonic well-being is about searching for our true self or true nature, and Taoism pushes us towards that in terms of helping us get closer to the rhythms of life, the rhythms of nature. So, in that sense, we find the understanding about ourselves in relation with keeping in harmony with nature. So, this is where we come to an end to this particular lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to look at how the contemporary times in the East Asian cultures, including China, these scholarly notions of well-being could still be relevant and could also be integrated with the modern therapeutic ways that help us attain a better sense of well-being. Thank you very much.